Hey guys, this is Savannah from earthandwater.co, and I think we're going to talk about the yin and yang because, I don't know, a bunch of stuff just led me to this today. Apparently the universe has decided it's a day that I'm going to be very opinionated about a lot of things and fiery about it. And since it just so happened to align when I have some space and time, which doesn't happen often since I have children and all these adult things going on too that I have to navigate around, and I don't always get to work when the passion hits me. But anyway, so yin and yang, also known as push and pull, light and dark, the sun and moon, these opposing energies, the Tui and La, the Uzumaki and Uchiha, if you know what I'm talking about. The universal energy and the balance struggle between it, which is what a ton of media and culture and stories have been trying to tell us, and we just were la-di-da-di-da, not paying attention. Self-absorbed in our own conflicts and traumas and healing processes, which is fine. It's where we were, and now we're hopefully waking up. Well, we are definitely waking up to the truth of the matter, being that we are all these same two energies, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the contrast that allows life to exist on this physical plane through experiences and whatnot. You can't have one without the other, and together they create a whole, a circle. And these two opposing energies are both within us, and we crave the balance of them both. And so most of our conflict comes from the power struggle, looking for balance in both, in contrast to how humanity's nature is to box things and label things, but we can't do that when we're looking for this balance because the balance is fluid. For it to be boxable and labelable and stiff, it has to be stiff. It can't be malleable and movable, but that's not how things are. Energy, life, existence is malleable, it's fluid. And I look up and it's 1:11, you guys. Synchronicities. I appreciate every bit of encouragement I can get from the universe and from other people, because I don't always have it in me to just the confidence and whatnot to keep going. Anyway, so I digress. Yin and yang, passive and receptive. We want to label them, we want to box them, and in thus doing so, we have created a culture, a society where the yin, the darkness, is considered bad, but the energies themselves don't have a moral pull. They just exist. They simply are, like a tree just is. And money, money is not the root of all evil. Money is just a tool, and it's just there, and it can be wielded by us and our free will to that which we desire, which is not always the best way, right? And since we are all that there is, energy is everything, and we are this energy, and our inside reflects our outside, and our outside reflects our inside, because our inside is our outside. It all is just is. The conflicts of the world are mirrored within ourselves. We have conflict in the world because we have conflict within ourselves about ourselves. And so I talk a lot about energy work and shadow work, essentially, and working on these things, these conflicts, essentially, between, our yin and yang energy. We have both within us, and we are capable of finding the balance between both, but it means letting go of the external conflicts coming in, disallowing society and culture and these standards that other people have given to us to reign over our own healing. Because when we let them get in the way of our own healing, it just causes more conflict. Our spirit, our emotions, all of those are driving us towards what we need to heal. And if we just let go of the restriction from outside influences and follow and allow it to take us to where we need to focus to heal, it would go a lot smoother. But one of the main ways I recommend getting started with people is to focus on your outside world and cleaning your space and working on your physical body, because we're so rooted in the physical that sometimes it's easier to start there and work your way towards the more non-physical aspects of the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, all of that. But I also need to point out not to get distracted with your outside world and completely ignore the inside, because it's very easy to do, because it's often easier to just keep on noticing the outside rather than look at the inside, because there are people who do the opposite. They're too absorbed on the inside to notice anything that goes on around them. And this can also be a bad balance towards that. Both can cause anxiety. You don't want to be too noticing of the outside world, because that is scary. Okay, I know you've seen what's going on out there, but you know what? I'm pretty sure my theory has always been longstanding that the world has always been like this. It's more in our face now because social media and smartphones and all of that. So focusing too heavily on the outside world can absolutely destroy you. Your mental and emotional stability being. But on the other side, you can also be way too absorbed on the inside to the point that you're just spiraling all the time, and probably not noticing the people in your life who are also probably spiraling all the time, because it seems to me that is more the norm than just not. What is the opposite of spiraling? Emotional stability. But anyway, we need this healthy balance. We need to recognize this balance so that we can notice the power struggles that go on when we meet them, because that's the big part, guys. We can know this stuff, we can study this stuff, we can categorize it and all that, in our libraries with all the books, but applying it out in the field is where it is most important, right? And being out there, just living life day to day, and something comes up where you are given an opportunity to put these practices into practice. So step one, noticing that you're being given an opportunity to put this into practice. Noticing the power struggle between the yin and the yang. And I don't ever want you to associate it with good or bad, because that will hold you back from making the correct choices. Nothing is good or bad. It is simply a representation of either yin or yang energy, both of which needs to be present. They are equal. So when you come across something that bothers you, look at it not only from a small scale to a big scale. You want to macro and micro it in both directions at all levels and aspects of your life, so that you can really truly understand it, because we are a whole. Did I talk about this? I don't think I've talked about this in the podcast. I've talked about it on TikTok about how we are all a whole, and we are a whole individual. So when we have energy blocks, yeah, they manifest physically, they manifest emotionally, mentally, in our quality of life outside of us, because as within, so without, we are a whole. The inside is the outside, and vice versa. It's all a whole thing, but most of us can't understand the perception of wholeness, because we live in this three-dimensional world. So we only have 3 dimensions, and they're all sectioned off essentially. But there's many, many more levels to the understanding and the existence of us as a being. So when you're working with energy blocks, sometimes it's easier to section them off and come at them from one point or the next. But essentially, there is a whole cause to it, and it's round like a ball of light, because that's all anything is a ball of light of swirling energy. And now I'm kind of like an analogy type thing, but really paint this picture for you. We've seen the Matrix, right? Where they're in the Matrix, but you're looking at it from like a computer screen, and everything is just the zeros and ones, and some of the zeros and ones take on the shape as they flow around as people, as the characters, It's like that. It's quite holographic in nature, but everything's white light instead of the green zeros and ones with the black background on the show, on the movie. So everything's solid white light threads, basically. And these threads of energies concentrate in certain points to make you, me, and then within us, energy blocks, which are even denser. Yeah, And this density hinders flow, which causes health problems. And so we come at them from a whole standpoint, because since we're living in this matrix-like holographic system where it's just misty white light threads and everything else is just an illusion in how we perceive it, we can just come straight at the block. And this is probably what Reiki masters are doing. And if we just allow it to be healed that way, we can allow it to be healed that way and move on with our lives, and everything's just snazzy. But our minds, being as powerful as they are, can also do whatever. And so just because you have somebody heal it and take it out, our minds, if the issue that created the block in the first place isn't addressed, it will just put it right back. And of course we don't do this intentionally, you know, situations, circumstances come up and we remember that that was a thing, and that's usually all it takes to go wrong, honestly. Because once you remember the situation, you begin to relive the situation. Because thinking about these things and how they happened is essentially reliving them, because our energetic self, our mental, emotional, subconscious self, doesn't differentiate between what is quote-unquote real and what is not, because it's none of it's real and all of it's real all at the same time. I hope y'all know I know how this sounds. If you're a skeptic, I am also a skeptic, which is why I've clung to the science and like looked at it and then looked at it again and studied and then looked at it upside down and like, are you, what? But as things stand thus far, we cannot disprove it. But I probably don't have to convince you of it, because if you're here at all, then you are already on the faith side of things. But I did come into all of this as a skeptic and just in search of the truth and understanding. Did I want to believe? Sure. I've always wanted to believe in magic and whatnot, but I also wanted to believe it to an extent that I could not disprove it. I wanted to believe it with every fiber of my being and bone, which is exactly how the magic works, okay? Your belief system is exactly how you do real magic and tap into all of these powers and stuff that are supposed to be available with the development of our chakras. I was definitely a kid that, instead of paying attention in class, stared at my pencil for an hour and a half straight trying to will it to move. Okay, that's how I spent my childhood. Then, of course, you know, I had all these people telling me how crazy that was and how silly that was, and magic wasn't real, and I was like, oh, come on, though. Is it not? But I was raised in church, and, like, there's lots of magical stuff they talk about happening in the Bible, and y'all believe that stuff, right? So anyway, yeah, circling back to yin and yang energy. By really studying and understanding the passive and the receptive, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, these two opposing, polarizing powers present in the universe that make up all things, it will help us also, in turn, understand ourselves and our own conflicts and how to handle those. Maybe, at least it'll get us a little bit further in the process of healing those. Like, I try really hard not to get political at all, but for a few examples, you can see the yin and yang power struggle in social events, or social movements. You know, we've been doing it a lot in the past, like 10 years, I'd say, give or take, more or less. I don't know, depends on your generation and what you were doing and what was going on big in the world and stuff. But with the LGBT community and the feminist stuff, and the Me Too movement, you know, just all of those things, you can see the yin and yang balance struggle in those. For different reasons. Suppression is a real thing. A dominance of one side over the other. Again, it's a tale as old as time, okay? The battle between good and evil. But see, we don't need to be looking at it as a battle between good and evil, because that's our problem. Our problem is that we've been looking at it as a battle between good and evil. That's not what it is. We need to look within ourselves as a whole and see, you know, you got that yin inside the yang and the yang inside the yin. It's that little piece of both in both, because both just is both. It's just two sides of the same story, and we should be looking for balance between the two. And we're working on it. We're getting there. The process just is the process, coming from where we started. Demolishing the patriarchy does not mean establishing a matriarchy. It means coming back to a sense of balance for both and all to work together in peace and harmony for us all. Every piece of the puzzle is important in its own right and necessary. And circling back, there's only this conflict in the world because there is this conflict within ourselves. And the own decisions we make and how we live our lives and how conflicting those choices sometimes are, and how confusing sometimes the right decision is because of all of this. So yeah, stay self-aware. Recognize your patterns within yourselves that are reflecting out into the world, and vice versa, because everything's just a giant mirror. Good luck. Take a deep breath, relax your face and shoulders, sit up tall and straight so that, the energy can flow fluidly and unobstructed up the spine and out the crown. Come hang out with us in the Facebook group. Let me know what you think. I'm always afraid these are just rambles, so please send me your questions if you have them. I'm going to leave like 2 or 3 minutes, I don't know, 4 or 5, who knows, for you to just sit here and exist and contemplate all of this. I love you. Namaste. I'll talk to you next time.